Dean, University of Nebraska College of Nursing. The interview is taking place on July 6, 1979. I'm Bernice Hetzner, Emeritus Professor of Library Science. Dr. Boyle, is there any truth to the story that Dr. Whitson went to New York to talk to someone in the National League for Nursing? It might be National League for Nursing Education, National League for Nursing, about the program at Nebraska. And during the course of his visit to this office, he met Dr. Rena Boyle. And before the interview was over, he had invited her to become the assistant dean for nursing at the University of Nebraska. Is that the way it happened?
Well, part of it's very true, but the first time he barely talked with me. It was over a breakfast at the Waldorf several weeks later that I agreed, yes, I'd like to come out and visit the program at the University of Nebraska.
Did he, what was his approach?
You know Dr. Whitson as well as I do. And he did the most interesting thing, even in talking with my staff. He had brought with him the drawings of Phase 1, Phase 2, etc., the new buildings. And I thought to myself, well, I wonder if he'll ever get beyond those pictures. Well, when he saw me at the hotel later, he showed me how far it already moved. So I thought, well, the man does more than just talk. And I was looking at other positions just then, and on my way out here, I had stopped at the University of Indiana, where I was being considered for chairman of the graduate programs. And I was all ready to call and say, no, I think I know exactly what I want to do. And then I thought, no, I promised him I'd go out. So I came on out. And that was probably one of the best orientations of a person to a university I've ever seen, of meeting with faculty, with students, with medical chairmen, and then a trip down to Lincoln. Stop a minute. How long do you want me to read? One part of that trip was going down to meet President Hardin. And we were sitting in his office talking. They both pushed me, but President Hardin more than Dr. Whitson, on, well, what would the League say if we developed this or that type of program? And finally I got a little annoyed, and I said, well, what does it matter what the League says? I wouldn't be planning for the League, I'd be planning for Nebraska. Well, they both started to laugh. Then the president apologized, and he said, well, I will tell you that we had 2 visitors for an accrediting visit, and I vowed and declared I'd never again talk to anyone from that National League for Nursing.
I think I know what he meant, because I was here when that accreditation team came, and I felt the same way about them.
So I guess it was quite hard for him to think that Dr. Whitson had gone to the League for a dean. Mm-hmm. I was ready to leave the League, but I had been there 6 years. Mm-hmm. And we worked with about 300 college and university programs. Well, I liked the consultation, and I liked the accreditation. Mm-hmm. But the Council of Member Agencies, when all the deans were there, I often said that as a group they were perfect witches. That as individuals I liked them all. Mm-hmm. And I was ready to get back to school and to get back where there were faculty. And mm-hmm. that was why I was ready to leave at that time.
Did you Was your ultimate goal then to be a dean or work with a school program rather than administration?
Perhaps I have to go way back, but I had
Yes.
always vowed that I would never be a dean. That I didn't like administration. I loved to teach. I had worked with beginning students. I'd worked with student teachers at Minnesota. As a consultant, I always did a great deal of teaching when I was out of the country in Haiti and Guatemala and Panama. But once I had been at the league and saw some of the messes that the deans got themselves into, and I realized that there were some things that if you wanted to see in nursing, you almost had to be in an administrative position. You couldn't just be a faculty member. And it was at that time that I began looking at positions for dean.
Well, wasn't this at about the time when schools of nursing were in a kind of a transition period because they had gone from where nursing students were set apart. No one, about this time they were becoming liberated, shall we say, and like other students. I think we went through it here.
It went through it here much later than in the rest of the country. That this was beginning to happen in the mid-50s and 60s. The associate programs were flourishing, and of course, as you know, Nebraska was the next to last state in the Union to have an associate program. Only Alaska came later. So it was a transition period. What I liked about Nebraska, first of all, it was Midwest, and home for me is Midwest. It had a small program, it was accredited, and it was only one program. I wanted no part of these huge programs. And it was a faculty that, both faculty and students actually made me feel very, very welcome, even on my first visit. And that continued always.
Well, if this, just for the record, at this time, as you say, it was one program, and that program was a degree program.
And there were 80 students in it at the time I came. It sounds a little different from the 720 last fall.
Indeed.
But it wasn't just growing like Topsy. It was a very planned growth that Dr. Whitson had said to me when I came, now when do you plan to have a master's program? And I had assured him that I wouldn't even think of it for the first year until I knew that the faculty were ready. And that was the first program that was planned, and we would move the first students to it in 1970. There were some interesting things when I came. Faculty were all over the old building, and I mean that in order to get to one faculty office, you had to go through the ladies' toilet and into a room with 3 desks behind it. 3 other faculty had their desks in what was the nursing arts practice lab. And they were just all over, and there were typewriters all over the place. But there was only one secretary and a half-time secretary. So even as we first talked about, we talked about the need for equipment, the need for secretarial help, that we would need to remodel and get faculty out of the areas they were occupying. And there again, Dr. Whitson was such a fun person to work with that it was always a matter of, tell me what you need. Now, I won't promise you'll get it, but let me know. And not limited to a certain amount, but just tell me and we'll do what we can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what he could always went far beyond what I expected. Oh, I think one of the funny things, though, and it might well represent the change in the way nursing was thought about and the way we're reacted to now. I put in on my first monthly requisition a requisition for an electric pencil sharpener.
Yes.
And I got back the same requisition with quite a note on it. Only public relations can have an electric pencil sharpener.
This came from the purchasing office, was it? One of those Lee Dicks from Scripps-Mill? Huh? Oh, yeah. But
Well,
he took his orders from
for the
Scripps-Mill,
next
didn't
month, I put in the same requisition and I got it back again. Didn't you understand that only PR could have a pencil sharpener? Well, it wasn't long after that, but it was on a Saturday morning. I was sitting in Mr. Scripps-Mill's office, and there was the most beautiful Frieden calculator you have ever seen.
Yes.
And I commented on it and said I liked the Friedens, and he said, well, what do you have? I said, I'm really not sure whether it's the Spanish-American War or World War I. Well, he just thought maybe we'd better order one. Then he started to laugh and he said, I hear you've been having some problems about a pencil sharpener. And he said, I've wanted one too ever since you started that. Supposing I ordered two.
And Knudsen couldn't turn him down.
Well, there was only one more episode that we had to live through, and that was when I ordered an executive type chair for a rather large faculty member. And I got the note back that only chairman and deans could have executive type chairs.
Oh, I know exactly what you went through.
So, with that in mind, I wrote a note and said that in the future I would be glad to send them the length, width, and girth of all faculty. And that when they had approved, I would let them decide whether or not I could have that particular person on the faculty. Well, the chair appeared the next day, and we had no more problem. But that was a far cry from then until today. I must admit it was a far cry from the time of the old Ditto with its purple ink to the Xeroxes and the equipment that we now have.
There was one time when we all had to justify the Xerox machine. We were told we had to take it down to that service building and get
That's
it
right. I just make very little comment about the equipment we have now. I'm just very grateful we have it. If it hadn't been for Reba Ben's scooter, I literally called her when I first got here and I said, would she come over and help me plan what we needed for audiovisual? We had just one 16mm projector and one carousel projector, and that was the equipment. Well, she was as enthusiastic about helping me plan with those two pieces of equipment as she was to plan for two-way television and how we'd manage videotapes throughout the state. But that was the kind of help that I did get that was really just tremendous, and it made me feel very much it was a worthwhile place to be. The students here, though, were also unusual. I had worked, of course, in Minnesota. I knew that group, and in many ways they were much like those students. But they're so different from the students on either coast that expected to go through high school and college at government expense, that didn't expect to work for it. They were so much better as far as academic ability that it was just really privilege to work with him. I remember, too, that first class that fall, we were wondering if we'd ever get the 50 students that we needed. It wasn't too many years later we began to have 600 or more applications, so that it made quite a difference.
I remember once at a faculty meeting that and I can't remember whether it was Hardin or Varner. I believe it was Varner. And the subject came up about a program in Lincoln. And if I remember correctly, you weren't very enthusiastic about establishing a program in Lincoln. Am I mistaken?
You're not mistaken at all. After we established the master's program, almost that same year, the legislature appropriations committee had asked me what we were going to do now that some of the hospital schools were closing. And I had said that we would probably open an associate program, that it would not be the first 2 years of the baccalaureate, that it would be technical, terminal, and serve a different group. It was the one time they asked me what I would need, and I told them that we would need
This was the
the
legislature.
legislature.
Yes.
And I had told them that we would need both funds and facilities. We had a week to plan budget and a year to plan program. And so in 1960, we took in our first group of associate students. Well, we were doing all right with that. Then to be faced with, would you extend the programs to Lincoln? And they wanted the same program, the associate and new baccalaureate, that by then we were planning. And this was really Dr. Colfoot's insistence that not only it was something that would be good, but it was a must. And we had indicated in a feasibility study that we'd probably have problems in recruiting faculty, that it would be costly, and that the facilities probably were not adequate, since they did have 3 diploma schools.
In Lincoln.
In Lincoln, one was phasing out, and the other one said it would if we started, and the third one was going to later. No, we weren't anxious to move. And it's been a problem all through the years that the students want to go to Lincoln. There's no problem there. But the faculty want to be in Omaha. And the clinical facilities are limited because although Lincoln General and St. Elizabeth's closed, Bryan still has a school, and it has some of the acute care that we much need for students.
So the clinical facilities are limited in Lincoln even now.
And you see Union College also uses them. Much more than at the time when we first began talking about. Previously they'd had most of their experience in Denver, but now more of it's in Lincoln.
It seems to me that it's always difficult to administer a program in 2 different places.
I don't think we could do it without the two-way television.
Yes.
This last year hasn't been quite as bad, but the preceding year we taught several of the elective courses in the baccalaureate program by television, and the upper division sciences are taught from here by television. In the spring we run about 22 hours a week of two-way television.
Do you feel that television is as effective as the personal
Well, we know the
presentation?
students learn the content just as well.
Oh, that's right, because they pass their exams
They
with flying
take, well,
colors.
they take the same exams on both campuses.
Mm-hmm.
And we know too that if the teaching is good, it's good. If it's poor, they hate television.
Mm-hmm.
It really, there's an exacerbation of poor teaching by television. And some of the science people are not as good teachers as we wish they were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think this is probably true with all audio-visual type teaching. If the program is poor,
It's very poor.
very poor. Yeah.
On the other hand, we've seen one of the courses in nursing trends that doubled its enrollment the second year by television. That the teaching was good enough and interesting enough that didn't matter how you taught it, but the media by which you taught it. We have our Monday morning administrative conferences by television. The cameras here in the room.
Yeah.
And during the winter that works just fine. In the summer when the TV takes over, then we go back to the telephone conferences. Many of our committee meetings are by television. The main difficulty there, you have to have a class first on telling faculty how to behave. Because they sit and talk to each other and forget they can be seen on the screen, and then it's very annoying. But after a few go-arounds, they learn how to react to the TV.
Yes. I would imagine that would be. I can remember only once participating. Reba sent up a library committee meeting that included the library committee included Dr. Robert Osborne, who at that time was in charge of the program, was in Norfolk. And so we had this library committee meeting down at the NPI conference room. And after a while, you just felt like he was right in the room with us. It was very effective.
It really makes very little difference as you're accustomed to the people. And then it's hard, though, to go back to telephone conferences.
Yes, I imagine it would be. Well, all during this time, wasn't there a concerted effort to upgrade the faculty?
It's, again, been very nice to observe. At the beginning, over half of the faculty who were teaching in the baccalaureate program had only their own baccalaureate degrees. Now, of course, all of them have their baccalaureate and their master's. I was the only one with a doctorate at the time. No, Dr. Hook had hers. Now there are 10. And that, too, is a good number of nurse faculty for this time in nursing. The associate program is about where the baccalaureate was earlier, with half with master's, half with baccalaureate. So that has made a change. It's also changed the fact that the faculty in the graduate program are carrying on their own research or working with students in research. And that was just not being done at all. One of the things that came up very early was the fact that the University of Nebraska, or rather the University of Omaha, had a program for registered nurses, and it led to a baccalaureate degree in nursing, but it had no nursing. It had a course in administration, one in supervision, but nothing in nursing at all. So the one thing when there was the merger of the university that President Harding had said was that there would be just one nursing program and it would be accredited. And the program at the University of Omaha had never been accredited and couldn't be without nursing courses. That was quite an experience too. How do you phase out a program?
Yes.
And the person who headed the program couldn't have been more helpful. We also had a committee that more than half were from UNO, from engineering, from counseling, liberal arts, you name it.
Uh-huh.
I remember Dr. Hodgson from here was on it, and two of us from nursing. And we were able to plan so that the students in that program could either finish it within a 12-month period or else come into the program here.
Mm-hmm.
And much to my delight, it only hit the newspapers twice, and in very small articles, and the comments not even too negative. And
Yeah,
it was
it
a
must have
very
been.
large program. They had over 150 in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
It must have gone out quietly because I don't remember any great fuss about it.
there really wasn't, and UNO has always been very supportive of the nursing program.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned when we started the associate program, that was one of my predictions and one of the biggest changes in my own attitudes I have ever experienced. I had told the legislators it would be technical, it would be terminal, and it would not be the first 2 years of the baccalaureate.
Yes, the question, when you said that, I wondered because it isn't the way it is now.
That's not the way it is. The first year, we got exactly the students we anticipated. Older women, some licensed practical nurses, students from middle half of the high school class. And by 2 years later, we couldn't tell the student group from the group that was applying for the baccalaureate. They were coming from the upper fourth of high school, or they were coming with a B or better average in college.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying to us, why will it take us 3 years to get our degree? Why can't we get it in 2 more years? Well, it was a little hard to answer because we liked the associate curriculum. And we thought that perhaps by just adding chemistry to it, it could make a good base. We were able to get a federal grant, and that was probably one of the fastest moving that I've ever seen. When we first talked about it, within a week's time, I had talked with the executive committee of the College of Medicine. We'd talked with nursing service, we'd talked with, of course, the faculty and all the students, and said what we hoped to do was build on the AD and then make the baccalaureate the last 2 years in a very different program. Mm-hmm. That it would admit only registered nurses for the last 2 years.
Oh.
Well, it was easy to explain. If in 2 years they could finish their first nursing, take their state board exams and become registered nurses, then the last 2 years you could plan only for a registered nurse. And it could be something different from anything in the whole country, and it is.
And it ended up with a baccalaureate degree.
Ended with the baccalaureate, or they can go out to master's.
In other words, this is the first step on the ladder, or the
It's
second
our
step.
career
the first
ladder.
and second, yes.
Of the AD to the baccalaureate to the master's.
Mm-hmm.
We're still the only program in the country that has those 3 levels. Some of the others start PN, AD to baccalaureate. But the fun part of it, nursing was known all through the years as being very rigid.
Yes.
The curriculum was very prescribed, and it still is in our associate program. But in the baccalaureate, we could build on the sciences, and we have 3 sciences of pathophysiology, immunology, and pharmacodynamics. You name it. And then they can feed in liberal arts electives that will strengthen it. But if it is in community health, maybe they want more on community planning. If it's psychiatric, more in anthropology. Well, then at the point they finish, they not only have their baccalaureate degree, but they have a particular area where they have greater competence than you would expect from the baccalaureate graduate. It sells well to the employers. It's much easier to tell a registered nurse, wouldn't you like to come into this program, choose your area of interest, and see what you'd like, than it used to be, where you'd say, yes, you can come in, but you'll be in with beginning students and taking the same courses. They didn't like that. There were differences. But it was much harder to explain the differences.
Do many of these graduates go into teaching?
From the baccalaureate?
Yeah.
From the master's.
From the master's, I see.
We discourage them, although some do go into teaching in some of the hospital schools, but we hope they're going to practice as nurses.
Yes.
And then in the master's, again, the emphasis is clinical nursing, but they can choose administration or teaching, or being a clinical nurse specialist. And at that level, we feel we are better able to prepare the people for teaching and administration. Oh, we've always had something, though, that I've been proud of, and that's about the year after I came, or 2 years, a group of the faculty began to plan for an elective in rural community nursing.
Yeah.
And our first sites for that were out in Ogallala and Broken Bow. Now in the new program we have the elective in rural community, but we also have administration of the small hospital or nursing service in the small hospital or nursing home. And quite a few of the students elect that.
Do you get students in this program that come from other states?
In the baccalaureate, yes. In the associate, we try not to admit out-of-state students, and then in the master's we do.
Yeah.
But it's still primarily Nebraska.
Well, the need is here. I just thought, being a unique program, maybe they would come from other places.
I think what we get from other places are the requests for consultation. I don't think there's ever a week before I answer a letter about our programs or how we went about developing in more recent years, we've had the off-campus program for the registered nurse.
You mean continuing education kind of programs?
No, continuing ed we were also in.
Yeah, but this
This is the nurse out in Scotts Bluff who is a registered nurse that wants a baccalaureate degree, or in Shadron, or Norfolk, or Grand Island.
Great.
And when I was first here, I would go out in response to the Nurses Association. I'd talk to them about the programs, and they would say, "What are you going to offer courses for credit?" Well, I saw no way to do it. It was offering the courses we were offering to beginning students, and that didn't make sense. But the minute we got the career ladder type programs, and the junior and senior years designed just for registered nurses, then all you had to answer was, well, how do you do it?
You could plug that right in once you got.
You had the courses, but how did you get from there? And of course, Miss Kearney was the one that literally picked up the ball and ran with that. But we had many meetings with, well, quite typically out in Scotts Bluff, we met with the president at Nebraska Western Community College, with the administrators of the hospital, the director of the hospital school. Talked with them about it, and said that if they would teach the non-nursing, we could teach the nursing and the sciences. But see, they only had the first 2 years, so we had to plan with Shadron. And they were already teaching in Scotts Bluff, and yes, they would teach the upper division non-nursing. So it was a three-way triangle. And when we meet with the nurses at first, we'd have groups of anywhere from 75 to 100 who would come who were interested. What we finally ended up doing was videotaping the lectures. We prefer to take them in the studio, but some of the science men won't. Bill Rubiner has done a beautiful job of putting his course on tapes. And most of the nurse faculty will go over and tape it in the studio. Otherwise, it's taped live. Then the videotapes we distribute to about 12 different locations in the States, and the students can go in and view them whenever they want to during the week. Then there's a 2-hour telephone conference each week with the faculty member who's teaching. They take the same exams, but instead of the clinical experience right along with it, in the summer faculty go out for a 6-week period, and this summer they were in Norfolk, Hastings, Grand Island, and Scotts Bluff. Then select the clinical experiences in the community and in the hospital or nursing homes. And a student in that way can complete working and going part-time, can complete the 2 years in a 4-year period without ever coming on campus and earn the degree of Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
You could keep right on with their career.
And they make just as good grades as the students on campus.
It's
Well, we have a Kellogg grant for that, and that certainly has helped.
And a great need for it, too.
It has made all the difference in the world. I think you know that Regent Simmons many times tends to have problems with Omaha, and then I don't think there's anyone who's a better friend of college or nursing. He even came to the first day of planning and sat there all day.
How about that?
He will say, well, now, if nursing can do it, why can't some of the rest of you do it?
Well, maybe he has a point there.
But it has made a world of difference in the feeling that, yes, the university does come out of outstate. And the colleges have been terrific. That Scotts Bluff offers rooms at the dormitory for our faculty in the summer. Kearney State has taught classes in Broken Bow that you'd never expect them to do. The hospital schools have the tape recorders in them, and the students go in there to view the tapes. It's a whole community that gets wrapped up in this.
Well, I think that's great, and it probably, since it is connected with the health care, and that's everybody's concern, it probably sells the university better than if the engineers went out and did something.
In many ways, yes. Well, as the students do their projects in different courses, last year some in the community health were demonstrating foot care at one of the nursing homes.
Yes.
They could hardly wait till the students came back this year. Weren't they going to do the same thing? Well, that's an odd one, but nonetheless.
Well, there must have been a need for it.
And they've done some of the most original projects with preschool children with the handicap that you could imagine. And I laugh. The VNA here in town is having to cut back staff this year because of financial squabbling with the health board. We were wondering where we'd get enough experience, and the person in community health nursing, or the group of faculty, said, well, if you'd have asked us a few years ago, we'd have said it couldn't be done. But since we've been off campus and we've been out in the other communities and seen the things that we can use, we can do it. We don't have to have it all in the agency. So it's a two-way street of what you learn.
Well, it certainly sounds to me like this faculty is, alert and dedicated and inventive, and I'm sure it comes from your leadership.
Well, let's just say the faculty were ready, and it's been so nice to see some of the changes as they've done these things. Because it was they that had to plan the curriculums, it was they that had to implement them. And I'm sure there are some days they would just as soon have gone back to the old program as to go on with the new. One of the things that we've always been very proud of have been the relationships with the other hospitals in the communities. We use 3 in Lincoln, St. E's and Lincoln General and Bryan and the regional center. We use 6 here in the Omaha area. And there again, that takes a lot of faculty work to make students acceptable in the agencies. But where I mentioned that we have good students, it's not only that we think so, but when it comes to the standardized tests, the achievement tests, and then later to the state board, they always rank above the national average for associate students, and usually top or one of the top schools in Nebraska. And when you think of their program being 2 years and the others, many of them being 3 and 4, you can see why we think they're great. There are other things, though, on this campus that students can't appreciate as they should. I wish they had seen the library, Mrs. Hetzner, when I came, and seen the work that you did in planning this very beautiful library, a very usable library. And it's just tremendous.
I, of course, view it with some kind of biased feelings. And when I see somebody come in, barefooted, or he puts his old boots up on the upholstery, I kind of shudder, but then I've got to accept that, I guess. But every once in a while, I run into someone who went to school when before 1970. We used the old library, and they tell me. Well, it was terrible, but they got what they wanted, and how nice this is, and so it's rewarding.
I don't know. Sometimes the reason a place grows is because of the times. That nursing here had tremendous support. Dr. Whitson, Dr. Sparks, Chancellor Vanslow. If it hadn't been for Dr. Whitson, we wouldn't have this building.
Well, I don't think we'd have the library either if it hadn't been for Dr. Whitson.
He made it his top priority for one particular year. I wrote the proposal. It was much easier to get the federal funding of over $2.5 million than it was to get the other $1 million from the state because of limitations. It's been interesting to see a building from the planning stage to having architects that were really very good in translating the written plan into the building. And then to see it in operation. It has given us the facility we wanted. I misjudged on one area. That I had no idea that within a year from the time we were here that we would be teaching physical exams to students, the health assessment skills. And we thought that one nursing practice room with its 9 beds or when they were up, the full room for use would be more than adequate for all levels of students. But we had to take one of the other classrooms and put curtains down one side that we still can seat 40 people in it and still have another 6 areas for health assessment. It's been good that we've been doing more like that. One of the other changes, for about 4 years we've been teaching the medical students many of the hospital procedures they'll use. And we get them very early. And they rate the teaching very high. They practice, they're very careful with their techniques with anything from hand washing to hypodermics and irrigations and what have you. And then for the last 2 years we've been teaching the allied health students. And that's been another group that has been very receptive. We do that group in the summer when our own students aren't here.
What about the nurse practitioner?
Well, you're moving into the future now. Nebraska's a little slower again. But I would say that some of the things that the new dean will be discussing with faculty will be wondering about. One might be, would we change the decision on nurse practitioners? We had said no initially, and they still aren't licensed in Nebraska, was one of the reasons. The other was that with the physician assistant, we did not want rival groups on the campus. Still another direction might well be whether or not, and at what point there would be a doctoral program. The new dean might also wonder, could we again look at the career ladder, and could you in 5 years perhaps lead from the AD through the master's and not have to be the 6-year span? I don't know. Or could you start with the using the AD as always, but take the baccalaureate and master's, that was in the 3-year span. There's all sorts of things to work with in the future, and I think I'll have an excellent dean in Dr. Wheeler. I've never seen anyone better received. when she was here on campus.
I didn't meet her, but I've heard that everyone was enthusiastic about it.
I was down at Lincoln one of the times she was having a two-way telephone conference between faculty and students here and there. And I sat in the back of the room. It was just delightful to see the nodding of heads and the questioning from both ends. It was very nice.
Well, then it makes you feel a little better about leaving your program in someone else's hands.
Well, it had reached the point where I hoped it would, of all three programs, the new programs being accredited, of the off-campus program firmly established, the building complete and well used, so that it was time for someone else.
Well, we're certainly all going to miss you. You've been not only a great professional and academic person, but a charming personality for us to have here.
That's an odd way to put it, because I think I have never been as surprised as at some of the farewells to hear from as many groups that I was tough.
Well, there are a lot of us that admire toughness, but through it all, you've been so pleasant with all of us.
Been a lot of working together, I will say that.
Yeah.
Good years.
There've been some real fine years. I'm glad I couldn't stay with you until now.
Yes.
But it was one of those things. And I think it is it's just great that when you're so busy getting things put together here at the end of the year and preparing to move on, that you give us time to talk about these things and to give the library archives the benefit of your experience here.
Well, I thank you for coming over. This is an opportunity we wouldn't always have. And the school is important on the campus.
The school is very important on the campus, and I think that I hope that this record will be available to scholars in the future so they can see where we've been, you know.
We didn't mention that transition in '67 from school to college.
Oh, that's right.
That Dr. Whitson had asked me several times when I thought it was time to have a college, and I said not until we had both the graduate and the undergraduate programs firmly established. Then, just before he left, we wrote the materials, presented to the regents, and then, of course, it had to go to the legislature. And again, it was tremendous support and was voted unanimously by both groups.
Yes, there was no question about it.
No.
It just went right through. It was the logical development, and
it was good timing for us.
yes. Well, there again, we go back to our friend Dr. Whitson. He was the master of timing.
Yes,
It seemed to
indeed.
me that master of timing and knew where to get the support that was necessary.
He really did. Well,
He's a great friend. Well, I thank you very much, and I will we'll try and get this transcribed.
if you need anything else or need it redone or anything,
Yeah.
I'm in the habit of doing things again and again.
Well, we will transcribe this, and I will go through it,
Sure.
helping our typist, and then send it to you for your looking at. And
That's a hard job.
this is the biographical sketch of Rena Ethel Boyle. Dr. Rena E. Boyle was born in Chicago, Illinois on September 9, 1914. She is a registered nurse graduate of the Methodist Hospital of Peoria, Illinois. Dr. Boyle received a Master of Science in Nursing Education, a Master of Arts in Educational Psychology, and a Ph.D. in Higher Education and Psychology, all at the University of Minnesota. From 1943 to 1954, she was an instructor to associate professor at the University of Minnesota, where she was director of student teaching. She was a consultant ICA in Haiti and Guatemala from 1954 to 1956, and a consultant to the University of Panama for 4 semesters. From 1956 to 1960, she was Chief of Research and Consultation, Division of Nursing Resources, Division of Nursing, U.S. Public Health Service in Washington, D.C. In 1961, she became Director of the Baccalaureate and Higher Degree Programs of the National League for Nursing in New York City. In 1967, Dr. Boyle was named Associate Dean for Nursing at the University of Nebraska College of Medicine. When the Nebraska legislature approved a change in status of the School of Nursing to College of Nursing in 1971, Dr. Boyle became the first dean of the University of Nebraska College of Nursing. Dr. Boyle is a member of the Executive Committee of the Nebraska Comprehensive Health Planning Council and a member of the Commission on Nursing Practice. She has been a member of the Commission on Nursing Education, has been involved with manpower studies for the Health Planning Council of the Midlands, and a member of the National Board and volunteer faculty of the Omaha for the Gabriel Richard Institute. She is a member of the American Nurses Association and the National League for Nursing. Dr. Boyle has received the Myrtle Leaf Award of Hadassah. In 1959, the University of Minnesota gave her the Outstanding Achievement Award. She is an honorary consulting editor of the International Journal of Nursing Studies and was a consultant to the Surgeon General of the Army and to the Chief Nurse of the Army Nurse Corps. She is a member of Sigma Theta Tau, Pi Lambda Theta, and Psi Chi honorary societies in nursing, education, and psychology. Dr. Boyle has been a consultant to the International Research Seminar in New Delhi, India, Commission on Rehabilitation Nursing, Division of Social Service Department of HEW, Educational Consultant to the Chief Medical Officer of the Canal Zone of Panama, Curry College, and Boston Children's Hospital, the University of New Mexico, Southwest Minnesota State University, University of Missouri in St. Louis, Western Washington State College, and University of Michigan in Flint. She was named Nurse of the Year and has been awarded the Outstanding Achievement Award for the 2nd District Nebraska Nurses Association.